My name is Joseph Jacob. You are watching Secrets of Public Speaking. In today's video, we are going to consider storytelling as one of the ways to introduce our speech. In the introductory video to this series, we emphasized the importance of introduction to our speech, because if our introduction is not effective, the audience may not be willing to listen to the rest of our speech. Today, we are going to look at storytelling as one of the most effective ways of introducing our speech. Naturally, humans, no matter their continent, no matter their country, no matter their race, no matter their culture, are always interested in a very good story. So when we mount the podium and start telling stories, almost everybody in the audience will want to listen to the story. And if our story is really interesting, we can use our story to captivate and sustain the interest of the audience. However, for our introductory story to be successful, we need to bear in mind that we did not mount the podium to tell stories. Rather, we just wanted to use the story to get the attention of the audience. So a good introductory story should not be too long. It should not be difficult to understand. It must have a link to the speech we are about to deliver. So in this video, we are going to see 5 topics and 5 examples of introduction in which the speakers will tell stories. Our first topic is honesty is the best policy. Let's listen to the story of Donnie as she introduced her speech.
I once read on Facebook about a business executive who was due for retirement and had to choose one of his 5 directors to succeed him and sustain his legacy. It was evidently a difficult choice for him to make. He gave each of his directors a seed and asked them to plant and nourish it. After 6 months, they would bring their respective plants to the office, and the one whose plant looks most flourish will succeed him. 4 of the directors often discuss in the office how their plants were flourishing, but one said nothing because he has done all he could, but his seed did not germinate. On the D-Day, 4 directors came with beautiful flourishing plants and laughed and made jest of the 5th director who came with his flower pot without a plant. The managing director informed the directors that he gave all of them dead seeds that could not germinate. It turned out that when those other 4 directors noticed that their seeds were not germinating, they went and bought another seed. Of course, the director, who came with the flower pot without a plant, was made the new managing director. Being honest is a virtue.
In this introduction, which is very beautiful and interesting, at least one important point I want us to take note of. She said she got her story from Facebook. As speakers, when we get stories, statistics, information from someone else, it's important we acknowledge the source of the information we are dishing out. Let's proceed to our second topic, democracy, the best form of government. Let's listen to Joseph and see how he will introduce his speech telling a story.
Mike traveled abroad for an international conference. In touching down at the airport, he saw something he had never seen before. Thousands of men, women, and children were demonstrating. He couldn't believe it. In his room, He was dumbfounded when he watched the news and saw citizens criticizing their president and the ruling party. At the conference, he started a conversation with another delegate seated next to him. He explained how surprised he was that such things can happen without military crackdown. The man he was talking to asked him, "Can you guess the form of government they practice in this country?" Most of us will answer democracy.
In this story, which is very interesting, we need to bear in mind that the speaker did not mention the name of any country. He deliberately omitted or refused to name the countries involved in his story. Why is it right to do so? It's because if you attribute something negative to a country and a citizen of the country might be in your audience, how will he feel? To be an effective public speaker, you must have the quality called tact. Tact is the ability to sense the feeling of other people and not to unnecessarily offend them. So in this introduction, the speaker was tactful. He narrated his story without referring to any specific country. It's time for our third speech. It's going to be delivered by Anthony. The topic is reformation or punishment, which is better for prisoners.
When Steve was 18, he was convicted for shoplifting and sentenced to 2 years in prison. The prison authorities denied him access to higher education, where he wanted to study civil engineering. He was not allowed as well to acquire any skill throughout the 2 years. Steve and his fellow inmates were fed once a day and were mercilessly beaten every day. After serving out his sentence, he was released, but he failed to successfully integrate into a society he had left for 2 years. He returned to crimes, even higher ones like armed robbery, kidnapping, and drug trafficking. You will agree with me that the prison authorities did practically nothing to reform Steve and other inmates. Would Steve have returned to crime if...
The introduction was interesting and very short. He quickly switched into his speech by letting the audience answer the question whether the prisoners were truly reformed during their stay in the prison. How to make mathematics interesting is the fourth topic we are going to watch right now. Let's see how Bella will tell a story to introduce her speech.
Throughout her basic education days, Kelly's worst grades were in mathematics. She did not like mathematics and all the teachers that taught her the subject. A hatred she could not explain why. Seeing numbers scared her witless, and she would not sleep at the eve of any mathematics examination. Perhaps you can relate with Kelly, or you even had worse experiences than hers. The truth is that many people don't like mathematics.
This story is very practical, and stories like these will definitely capture the interest of the audience. Our last topic is your role in eradicating HIV/AIDS. Let's watch as Adam will use story to introduce this topic.
Josh was only 12 when he lost both of his parents to AIDS. Without parental guidance, he left school and joined a criminal gang. He became a drug addict and was sent to prison. Josh can be your son, brother, nephew, or cousin. You and I have a role to play to ensure that we reduce the number of Joshes in our society.
That was a very touching story, isn't it? When our story is so touching to the audience, they will be willing to listen to us because we have reached, touched, and even melted their hearts with such stories. So next time you have an opportunity to deliver a speech, I hope that with this video you can consider using story to introduce your speech. When you do so effectively, you will definitely capture the attention of your audience and you will sustain it throughout your speech. This is where the curtain falls on today's video. In our next video, we'll consider how to use quotation to introduce our speech. Until then, bye-bye.